So here we go then, another new game to test out. Project Motor Racing is here, and this one's been on my radar for a while, and there has been a lot of hype around it up until launch week, so big things were expected. And I do have a bit of a soft spot for the studio that make this game, Straight 4 Studios, because they're the same studio that made the game that got me into sim racing back in 2018, Project Cars. So yeah, but today obviously we're looking at Project Motor Racing, not Project Cars, because yeah, that came out earlier this week. I'm a bit late with the video, but better late than never. And more specifically, we're going to hone in on one area of Project Motor Racing, and that's the realism. How realistic does it feel compared to the real thing? And this is something I've been doing across all the racing games over the last year or so. Most recently on Assetto Corsa Evo when they brought out their most recent GT3 car, the BMW M4 GT3 Evo. And for today in this video, we're going to be using the exact same car and track combo I used in that one. So the BMW at Spa, because yeah, they don't have the McLaren in Project Motor Racing yet. So the next best car for me to test is the BMW, as I've driven that car in real life twice this year. So once in Dubai and once at Silverstone. But yeah, let's give this a crack. How realistic is Project Motor Racing? Let's find out. Okay, so the first thing we need to congratulate Straight 4 on is the fact that this is not an early access. It's a fully fledged game, which in 2025 is a very rare thing. That does also mean our expectations should be a little bit higher because they don't have the early access excuse. And yeah, the other thing to get out of the way is that I've not been sleeping under a rock. I know that this game has not gone down well in the eyes of many throughout launch week. So I'm very aware of that. I'm trying to not be influenced by any of it. I'm trying to be completely neutral, not biased. If something's good, I'll say it's good. If it's really bad, I'll say it's really bad. So yeah, no bias here. And one final thing I think is just quite interesting for you guys to know is that Project Motor Racing did a factory driver program, which I was invited to. And basically it was behind the scenes in the development of this game. Certain individuals got an invite to come and help the devs tune the cars to get them feeling good and realistic. So I got an invite. I didn't actually take them up on the invite. I was just very busy with other stuff, so I didn't actually have any influence on this game. Thank you obviously to Straight 4 for the invite. But yeah, I didn't want to half-ass my involvement, and I just decided not to get involved at all. So but yeah, into this then. So I can't actually show you the menu because I'm on an ultra wide and the menu's all the way to the left and I can't get it, so it's in the middle. So you can't see what I'm navigating here, but I'm going to go to single player, race weekend. Obviously, I'm in the BMW, I'm at Spa, I'm going to have no AI, it's just going to be me on track. And here you can see the session conditions. So just a practice session, 2 p.m. in the day, heavily rubbered track out of 3 options. So pristine, heavily rubbered, lightly rubbered. I'm going to go heavily rubbered. Damage is on, tyre pre-warm, so tyre warmers we will have off. We'll leave them off. And then if we go to the weather, it's an average summer's day. There's no weather deviation on this average summer's day, and there's going to be no time progression. So with that in mind, let's get into the session. So as we're going through this little pre-lobby menu thing, again, I'm going to quickly, well, I can't actually show you the setup because the setup names for all the different pages are all the way to the left, and the setup itself with all the different parameters is all the way to the right. So you can only see the center of my ultra wide, and all of those things are on the outer edges, so I can't actually show you them. I am just going to run default setup. I'm going to quickly take some fuel out to make it a bit more reasonable. So it's going to be sort of qualifying trim, qualifying fuel, and yeah, as you can see, we're ready to go. So let me select first gear, pit limiter off. So you can see with the tyre widget, no tyre warmers. So the tyres are cold, 30 degrees. And yeah, the first thing I want to touch on, so I've done a couple of hours on this now, and the first thing I want to touch on is the graphics engine. So obviously it's the first thing we see, and it's the Giants graphics engine. I'm currently running this on the second highest preset for graphics, so not Ultra, but the one below it. And I'm currently getting 90 to 100 FPS consistently on my own in this session. So, it's not amazing, especially when you consider it's a fully fledged game. It's not horrendous. Optimization's okay, I guess. But by the time you throw other cars and stuff into the mix, you'll probably end up with not much. You'll probably end up with no FPS at all, to be honest. So the optimization needs some work, and the graphics themselves, I think, look okay. They don't look bad. There's definitely worse titles out there. I think it's fairly decent looking, nice to look at, but they're not the best I've ever seen. You know, I don't think they're anything on a set of Corsa Evo's graphics, for example, or I don't know. I put them sort of around Le Mans Ultimate's level of graphics. You know, it looks okay, like decent enough, but the optimization definitely needs some work. And yeah, full context, my PC specs are in the description below if you want to check out those, just to see where your PC might sit with FPS with this game. And yeah, my PC's on the Sim Equipment link in the description below, so go and check that out if you want to. Alright, so the next thing I want to touch on is the sound, and we'll focus on the internal cockpit sound for now. So I think we've driven this for a minute or two, so we've got a rough idea of what this sounds like. Let me just stop and start it. Okay, that's what it sounds like. Let me compare with one of my real-life onboards from earlier in the year. So, having the game and the video open at the same time makes it a little bit laggy, so ignore the video, just focus on the sound. The sound's absolutely fine. It's a lovely roar. Sounds really good from the cockpit, this car, actually. Underrated. So we've got a good idea of that, and I think it's fair to say, as we always find with these experiments, that the sound, it's not really close, is it? It's quite a bit different. I think there's an element of similarity, but I think overall it is quite different. It's a lot more whiny in the game than it is in the real car. Less throaty, less aggressive. It just sounds a lot different. As for the external car audio, so it's also worth saying the graphics are very badly optimized in the replay. Actually, they look a little bit worse than it actually does, I think, in the cockpit. Let's listen. Okay. I mean, that didn't sound amazing. This is the real car. Sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah. Again, I think the external car audio is miles off as well. I think it's way too weak, quiet. It's nowhere near aggressive enough. I think the tone's slightly wrong as well. I'm no audio engineer, but I think other games have got a lot closer to the external car audio than that has. So, yeah, audio, not great. Okay, next thing, so let's quickly touch on the track model. So I think it looks pretty decent, actually. I think it's a decent rendition of Spa. I think it's laser scanned, I don't actually know, but it looks like it is. Yeah, I think it's solid. I mean, it's nice to have a few decent versions of Spa in sim racing these days. You know, iRacing, a set of Corsa Evo, now Project Motor Racing. Obviously one of the best tracks in the world. So the devs have also said that there's a feature in this game called True Track Technology, which is basically a feature that will simulate adaptive racing lines. So wherever the rubber's put down, that's where the grip's going to be. And I hope that's the case, because yeah, most sim titles don't really capture this very well. And it is definitely a big thing in real life. Wherever the rubbered line is, that's where the grip is. Sometimes it can be in a very unconventional area. I remember in the Monza GT World Challenge race, the rubbered line was completely away from the apex of the last corner, Parabolica. Hopefully they simulate that well. it definitely needs more testing, and obviously we're on a heavily rubbered-in track, as you guys saw at the beginning, so just to give you guys some context, you can see the rubbered line a little bit as we're driving around here. But yeah, I think the next thing we will test is we'll do a little damage model test. It's always my favourite part of these tests, doing a little damage crash, damage model test. Right, brace yourselves. Trying to have a crash here. Oh, was that it? I definitely have damage turned on. My steering bent? Okay, yeah, my steering's bent. But is that it? Let's try again. Hey, these cars are... These BMWs are built different, aren't they? Absolutely no damage at all. Let's try this. They just bounce off the walls. Okay, I've got a little bit of damage after the Eau Rouge shunt. Oh, that's a great camera angle, isn't it? What the hell was that? You see that? My car came flying off the barrier like a bouncy ball. I don't think that's what would happen if you had a shunt at that particular area of the track. So yeah, damage model needs some work. And so if we move on to braking, the braking in this game is very similar to ACC or Rennsport, from what I can gather anyway, where the in-game input needs to be at 100%. You need to smash the braking in-game, and that is the quickest way to stop the car. So no finesse on the brake pedal, no modulating ABS, just stamp on the brake pedal and the car will slow down as efficiently as it can. So there's definitely ABS there. You can see it working on the dash. You can see the ABS lights kicking in. You can feel the ABS a little bit through the force feedback. So you can definitely tell it's there in a similar way to, say, Le Mans Ultimate, where you can feel it in a similar way. But there's no gain in modulating that ABS like you would in a real car. You just simply push through it, and that is the quickest way to stop the car, like an ACC. But yeah, to be fair, most sim titles don't capture this that well. I think iRacing probably do it the best, but even their version of it is a little bit extreme. So yeah, I'm not going to mark it down too much for having the braking like this. Okay, moving on then to the most important thing, without a doubt, and that is physics. How does it physically feel in my hands? Well, they've got a new physics engine for this game, and that's called Hadron. So, how does Hadron feel? Imagine calling your kid Hadron. That'd be a pretty nuts name, to be fair, Hadron. But yeah, the first thing I should say with the physics is that I got sent through from the devs a force feedback settings guide, which showed me everything I could adjust to get the feeling exactly how I wanted it. And I gotta say, there was so much adjustability in that guide. Like, you could adjust so much. So I'm sure if I sat there tinkering every little one of those settings, I could get the core feeling of the force feedback and the feeling through the wheel pretty close to the real thing for the most part. Like, there is that much adjustability, which is a really good thing. I haven't really done that, so I'm just running it out of the box. Yeah, honestly, the force feedback doesn't feel that bad. Like, it's okay. And I mean, there's a little bit of artificial detail there that you wouldn't get in a real car, but then again, begs the question, what should game devs be building force feedback feeling around? You know, pure realism or making a good racing game? Because I'm not sure you can have both. Like, in a real racing car, if you stripped away the G-force and the motion and all those sensations, and you were just left with what the feeling was through the wheel, it doesn't feel that good. It feels really numb. So it's just worth bearing that in mind. So yeah, there's a little bit of artificial detail here, but that's probably no bad thing. It gives you a little bit more feeling behind the wheel. The next thing that stands out to me is it feels like there's a lot of engine braking in this game. That's the best way to describe it. I don't feel like the car rolls or coasts very well. It feels like the engine is slowing it down, which then forces me to be on a pedal at all times. I'm either on the brake or I'm always on the throttle. And overall, it leads into this driving style, which is quite gamey or arcadey. You know, you're sort of always aggressively pressing a pedal, and it's a little bit slidey, and yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. Reminds me a little bit of Automobilista 2, just a little bit. The car also feels very sensitive to gear changes, so when I'm downshifting into corners, the rear does just kick out late on in the braking phase. It just seems a little bit excessive. Maybe I can simulate that here. So for a brake, down to second gear, and you can see the car have a massive jolt, and it just feels a little bit excessive. So that's a little bugbear of mine as well. So yeah, overall the feeling isn't amazing. It's also not horrendous. It's somewhere in the middle. It's just a bit meh. That's the way I see it at the minute. It's just a bit meh, and I definitely could get it better if I, as I said earlier, sat there tuning stuff. But a lot of people won't do that, right? So a lot of people are just going to play it how it is. And it's okay. It's sort of in the middle. And I think it does have potential, given the devs and who they are and how early on this game is in its development, even though it is a fully fledged game. I think it has potential. However, there is one big issue for me that overrides anything we've talked about so far in this video, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. So let me give you some context. I came on this sim and I approached driving it in a realistic way. You know, good fundamentals, brake in a straight line, trail brake, then starts turning, pick up the gas, straighten the wheel, trying not to over-rotate the front tyres, trying to avoid wheel spin on the rear tyres. Basic stuff. I was trying to drive it like I would a real GT3 car. And yeah, let me show you a hot lap of me doing just that. Okay, as we're approaching the last corner then, let's set this lap up. Let's drive it as I would a real GT3 car. Or even a conventional sim like iRacing or Le Mans Ultimate. So, braking nice and deep, trail brake, turn. Trying to avoid getting any wheel spin or cutting into the TC too much. Shifting on the red shift light. Eau Rouge, comfortably flat, which it definitely is in qualifying trim in these modern day GT3s. Default setup's a little bit understeery. Tyre temperatures are starting to come up now, so they're starting to get in the window. It's sector 2. Using all the curb. Having to be a bit patient for the front to rotate as it's a bit understeery, but trying to be neat and tidy. Using all the track, but not sliding, not abusing slip angles. Trying to respect the tyres. I can feel the tyre loading up. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to respect the limit of the tyre, as you would in a real car. Stabilo 2 is not quite flat with this setup, which is definitely a sign it's a bit understeery. Into the final chicane then. Rear's wanting to get away from me. But as we go to the line, what's the lap time going to be?
It doesn't feel good. You can come in and we'll change some stuff. We've got time.
2:17.6. So, yeah, that's okay. I mean, comparing it to real life, in qualifying trim, that's probably quite a slow lap time for a GT3 car these days. Usually they're in the 15s or even 14s in qualifying. So yeah, that's sort of what I was doing lap time wise. I was in the high 17s, low 18s, driving like that. And I thought, it just came to me when I was doing some practice. I was like, what if I drove in the same way I used to drive on Project Cars 2? And I do vaguely remember how I used to do that. So I just gave it a go, and well, I was quite surprised. Let's quickly show you guys what I mean. Alright, so we're going to do this with traction control turned off, and I'm going to drive it exactly as I would Project Cars 2 back in the day. So let's get into the lap. It's quite easy to get the power down, even with traction control off. But yeah, let's get into this. Keep an eye on the delta. There we go, we're a 10th up after that horror show of a turn 1. And the point here is, and you'll see it in Sector 2, is how much slip you can abuse front and rear with the tyres. Watch this. There's 2.5 tenths. You know, bear in mind, I should be losing time driving like this. Going into Piff Path. It's just mental. Six and a half tenths up then, on for a 216. This is the main problem for me with Project Motor Racing at the minute, in the way it feels. So I outbragged myself there into the final chicane and still gained just under a tenth, but yeah. 216.8. And you guys saw that. That should have been a 220. Even slower. You should be punished for driving like that. If I went to a real racing team and drove like that on, say, a GT3 test day, if I went out, drove like that, came back in, I'm pretty sure I'd not get an invite back. So, yeah. With the amount you can abuse the front slip angle, the rear slip angle with traction control turned off, it makes for a driving style that's not realistic in the slightest. I think we can all agree with that. I can combine entries an insane amount, like I can just slam the brake on and crank the steering lock on with loads of brake, and it still makes it to the apex. No like severe ABS intervention to stop you doing that. And yeah, it was a horrendous lap, and it was a 216.8. So the only thing that really regulates it to an extent is the tyre temperatures. If you watch on the lap itself, the tyre temps do skyrocket when you drive like that, so I don't think you could get away with doing that for an entire race. But for hot lapping or qualifying, this is definitely the quickest way to drive this game. And I've only done it for an hour or two, right? I've barely put any time into perfecting this style. So once you perfect the style and perfect exactly how to get the most out of it, obviously it'll be way quicker than a 216.8, but it will just look ridiculous, and it's not fun to drive like that. So I don't particularly want to figure out how exactly to go faster, because it's just not realistic driving like that. So yeah, you can drive this game under the limit and get it feeling okay. Like once you've tuned everything with all the adjustability that's on offer and drive it under the limit, it will feel alright. And the connection feeling as well between the tyres and the road, under the limit, it's there, I can feel it, and it's alright, it's not bad. But as soon as you start to load up the tyre and put any sort of force through it, it just goes a bit vague and a bit numb. So I really struggle at the limit to place the car where I want it to go accurately because I can't really feel what's going on underneath me. But yeah, under the limit I can. So it's there, it just needs to be worked on, I think. But yeah, knowing that in the way I drove that last hot lap, knowing that's the way to unlock the lap time, it does ruin it a little bit. You know, you just, even if you do sit there driving it under the limit because it feels more realistic, knowing that that's how you can go faster, it's just not the same because you know you're not at the limit. And yeah, also, I noticed this earlier as well. So if I just go down the gears, down to first, I just go straight into neutral. So I haven't found the setting to stop me going into neutral. That could be on me, but if there's no setting for that, that would also be a good thing to add. Probably is me being an idiot and not finding the right setting. But yeah, back to the physics. I've heard from a lot of people that some of the historic cars are much better. So yeah, apparently there's a lot of inequality between cars. So maybe I've just picked up a bad one in the BMW GT3. Maybe it's one of their worst cars. I don't know. I knew this going into making this video as well, and I didn't fancy driving a historic car for this test because I've never driven a historic in real life. I'd love to, but I just haven't. So it didn't make sense for this video to do that, given that I've driven this car in real life. And yeah, maybe the BMW is a bad example. It does feel like, to me though, that a lot of the issues I've talked about are pretty fundamental, you know? I feel like a lot of this stuff will carry over from car to car, but that's just, yeah, my prediction. I don't actually know that. On the plus side though, I think the way the car handles bumps and curves in Project Motor Racing feels good. It feels about right. It glides over the curbs nicely as a real car would. If you look at other titles like Assetto Corsa Evo, for example, or Assetto Corsa Competizione, it's a little bit too harsh in those titles, so it feels like the curbs are quite aggressive and the bumps, you can really feel the bumps, whereas in this, it feels a little bit more realistic in that sense, you know, it glides over the bumps, it glides over the curbs, so that's quite nice. Also, something that I saw other people say, which I agree with, is the sense of speed in this game is very good. It feels like you're going the speed you're going, you know what I mean? It's quite a weird thing to say, but other sim titles sometimes don't get that right. So iRacing, for example, it feels like you're going about 10 miles an hour in iRacing a lot of the time. Whereas this, it feels like I'm going quickly. So yeah, it definitely helps with immersion when that's right. Wet weather promises to be very good in Project Motor Racing from what I've read. I haven't tested it yet, and to be honest, I think it needs its own video, because if I do the wet weather on top of everything we've covered already, this video is going to be about 5 hours long, which is not good. So yeah, I will test that at some point. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to fix in Project Motor Racing before we can seriously consider it a leading sim title in the sim racing space.